Hello and welcome back to the channel. I wanted to touch base with everybody since it is now 2025 and I believe it is the year of marathon. We'll see what that means and how that turns out because obviously I was someone who was thinking more along the lines of a 2024 release window like many of us were after that initial trailer in the middle of 2023 and the following devlog that talked about the next thing that they would be releasing being a gameplay trailer, a look at the gameplay. May have been how that they worded that. Nonetheless, I am excited for 2025, and I think we have a lot of cool stuff to look forward to. So I wanted to make this video just to kind of generally touch on what happened in 2024, maybe a little bit about the channel, and then obviously all the news around Marathon, and then what my kind of hopes and expectations are for 2025, since that is now the year that we are in. So to start with, I started making marathon kind of centered content in January of last year, I believe. So we're coming up on basically a year of videos being released and kind of my back end work to make sure I had a level of knowledge and depth of the series and the games and the ARG. That all kind of started in the back half months of 2023. So been at this kind of endeavor for quite a while, and I am very happy and pleased with where it's gone or where we've come from. I don't know. I don't know what the good way to say that is, but very excited that we have a really cool, chill community, and I get to make silly videos yapping about lore from a 30-year-old game and this extraction shooter that isn't out yet. So very grateful for that, and that kind of started, at the beginning of 2024 and has led up to this point. Obviously, in terms of the game and my kind of thoughts going into 2024, like I said earlier, I was thinking this would be kind of like a generalized release window. My initial thought probably was more so like end of 2024, December, like right at the tail end of the year, maybe that fall kind of big AAA release window that they seem to fall into. But obviously that did not come to fruition, but we were still there at all the possible events, streaming, where we could have seen something. The Summer Games Fest and then the Sony State of Play and the Game Awards. And I think there was another one or two thrown in there where we were like, oh, something's going to be said here that obviously ended up being a bit of a letdown. The big stuff for 2024 with Marathon, despite us only getting kind of this one official thing, which was the dev update, was we got the Hero Shooter IGN article earlier in the year, maybe May or April. The time frame, I think, is when that came out, which obviously kind of let people know that Joe Ziegler, who used to be a game director over at Valorant, had come over and is now the game director for Marathon, and that Christopher Barrett, this kind of OG Bungie dude, was no longer working on the project, which ultimately a few months later, maybe it was August timeframe, we found out he had been kind of released or fired from Bungie or Sony, I don't know, however the corporate structure works, for this kind of misconduct issue. So that was kind of like a big thing that shook the soon-to-be Marathon community. Obviously, people kind of interested in hearing about maybe some of the changes that they were making to the runners to kind of move away from what seemed to have initially been pitched as a very customizable kind of format for each individual player character to something that's maybe more in line with kind of what Joe Ziegler was talking about in the dev update, these specific runner characters who have like class abilities. That this kind of idea obviously has been on the forefront of much of the discussion around Marathon within the community, and then also comment sections and generally online, probably kind of like exacerbated by this kind of ongoing comparison that people are doing between any game that they think isn't going to be successful and Concord, which was kind of this spectacular failure of a video game that people have not really seen something like that occur. Obviously, I think that's, a very silly comparison to make, especially considering we're talking about Bungie, who, from the way I view it, my perspective, they haven't really released like a bad game ever. I don't think, we go back and we just look at Bungie's list of games. I think we'd have to go all the way back to maybe like, Operation Desert Storm or not before I'm like, yeah, that's maybe not a great game. Like everything else, though, I've really enjoyed. So I think that comparison is kind of silly, but something that became kind of a prominent discussion piece after the Concord situation, which I think was in the summer. All of this kind of led into this, what I'll call the season of leaks, which was this kind of fall, August, September kind of time frame where it felt like every week, we were getting a new, oh, somebody from Bungie leaked this, or somebody who knows something about Marathon's development said this. We had the Oops Leaks guy on Twitter. We had the Game Posts. I think post like some separate leaks that they had gotten. And we also had Paul Tassi write an article about the leaks that I think kind of talked about some of the Game Post stuff and the Oops Leak stuff. But I believe he also claimed to have kind of a primary source for information that he was saying. So we kind of had the season of leaks where we were talking about maps and the way the game mechanics are going to work, talking about how the runners are going to work. A $40 price tag, I think maybe was the big thing that Paul Tassi talked about. Which, I think the whole leak speculation was, it's fun. I don't think it's not cool that, people are working on this project and developers are pouring a lot of time and effort into something, and for information about that item to get out prior to when it's supposed to, I can see how that would be frustrating for them. So I'm not like, I guess dancing is super excited for it. But obviously, as a fan and someone who's interested in figuring out what's going on and when's the game going to be here, that was kind of like a fun period to hear all of the potential avenues and, not knowing what is legit and what's, completely insane was a fun period of stuff to kind of cover and read through as it happened. And then ultimately that kind of resulted in what I think was kind of the most legitimate leak that we got. The only thing that I think had like a primary source that was like identifiable publicly and everyone can point to it and say like, look, this is just something that's true and real, which was the Heresy, the episode Heresy documents or files within Destiny 2 indicated that there was potentially some sort of marathon pre-order bonus attached to that episode, which I believe that episode now is supposed to be releasing in the beginning of February 4th of 2025. Don't quote me. I could be wrong about that. So that does kind of give us an interesting glimpse into what that kind of window of maybe pre-orders could start then would look like. And we could extrapolate further on that. I don't know enough to, about the games industry as a whole to say for certain that would mean, oh, that would mean it's coming out in summer. Or that would mean it's coming out in fall. But it is an interesting piece of information that seems to have been, out of all of the leaks that came, the most kind of legitimate piece of information that we got just based off the source of where it was coming from. And then ultimately the big piece of news that we got from 2024 was the dev update from Joe Ziegler, where we got to see the concept art for Thief and Stealth. And then we also got to hear a little bit about where the game is at in development and kind of some of the things they're working on. They're pretty, I say they, but I guess Joe Ziegler is the only one in the video, but he's pretty clear to kind of avoid touching any of like the hot topic kind of issues that people are talking about online. No exact kind of disclosure over the hero shooter move or what the specifics of the game are going to look like. But kind of the big key takeaway from that for me was that their plan is to broaden and open up the playtests going into 2025. That's kind of like how it ends towards the conclusion of that video. Maybe I'll throw in a clip here so you can see what I'm talking about.
Speaking of 2025 as well, like we said before, we've been really iterating with our players. And so in 2025, we're going to be expanding our playtests a little bit wider and wider. We're looking to add a significant amount of players to each of our milestones as we're going forward. And some of these big inflections are opportunities for you all to join us.
That kind of was like a huge deal to me. It's like, oh man, if we could have like a open beta, kind of like, we're going way back what Halo or what they had done for Halo 3. I remember playing the Halo 3 beta. And I'm sure they must have done some sort of, maybe I'm wrong about this, open beta stuff for Destiny at some point, or maybe it was just, certain content. But just to kind of like look back at that made me a little bit excited. Go, oh man, I remember playing, Halo 3 in the open beta days and how exciting it was, and trying to like, extrapolate on what the rest of the game could look like and what kind of avenues they're taking with the multiplayer and stuff like that. And so that was very fun. And the idea that we could get that experience with Marathon potentially coming up here pretty soon within the next, few months or weeks even, is obviously super exciting. And I would love to be involved with that and for my community to be involved with that. So that's kind of like the big takeaway there. And so we still don't have a firm release date. We still don't have any kind of additional lore or narrative information. But we do know that they are escalating development, that obviously they're working very hard to get this game out the door. They seem like such a talented and cool team. And I feel like some of the videos, especially the videos I made with Michael, kind of these last two, the one about the kind of story of Marathon told from the perspective of the new game based on what we know, and then the video before that talking about the art. Um, I feel like those are just huge examples of why I have a little bit of confidence and faith in this game, because I think so many cool aspects are coming together, and I'm really excited to see the team pull everything that they've shown into like a final product for us. So I'm excited about that. I think 2025 is going to be the year. Unfortunately, I have seen a lot of stuff online about 2025 being a hard year to release games in. Obviously, GTA 6, I think, is the big thing that comes to everyone's mind. We have a new Elden Ring, a new Doom game. There's a ton that I'm not even Death Stranding 2. Ton of stuff is obviously coming out this year, and I think it's going to be a very good year for gamers, you know. And I get how that maybe could be a scary thing if you're a business person. You know, if you're looking at how is my product going to perform in this market with X amount of competition, and what would be the benefit to holding out. And then obviously they've been developing it for a long time, so there's also kind of this probably pull and tug and pull in different directions in terms of what the business side of Bungie and Sony are thinking. So I'm really interested to kind of see where they end up landing on that. What I will say is that from my perspective, there's not a lot of hardcore PvP experiences that I am excited for. Not to say that Marathon is being pitched as some sort of like insanely hardcore, Arma style PvP experience, but it is niche, and that's something that Joe Ziegler did say in the dev update, that this is a niche PvP experience. An extraction game mode is not something that is being played by a mass audience right now for a lot of reasons. I think some of the same reasons why people didn't get into PUBG, but they did get into Fortnite. It just hasn't been brought in a way that has a level of mass appeal where something that like a Bungie studio could do. But I will say that there's not a ton of multiplayer games that I'm super hyped for that I think fill that void. So despite 2025 being a hard year to release games, I also kind of look and I say, well, Arc Raiders is coming out, and that's a PvP extraction or a PvE PvP extraction shooter, so that could be potential competition. But much different realms. Obviously, they seem maybe a little bit further along based off they've already had a playtest that the public could get into. They've released obviously a lot more trailers and been in development potentially for a longer time. Arc Raiders, I believe it started as a PvE only kind of experience and shifted even since that initial announcement, which may have been 2020. I might be wrong there. I'm sure is it Beebledop that's always in our live streams telling us about Arc Raiders. I forget. It might be someone else, but I'm sure he'll correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, I think despite all of the amazing stuff that we have coming, I do think that there is a strong possibility, I would say a likelihood, that we're going to see Marathon in 2025. Obviously, I'm a little bit of huffing the hopium here because I really want to play the game. I think that it's going to be kind of the premier game for me. This is going to be my go-to game for the foreseeable future after it comes out. Between how invested I am in the narrative and the world they're trying to build, and how just right up my alley the gameplay, I think, is going to be based off everything that we've seen and heard so far. So I'm a little bit biased in terms of that, but I do think that there's a very strong likelihood that we are going to have Marathon in our hands this year, and Marathon even made the top 50 list for upcoming 2025 games that Polygon have put out alongside all of those titles. So that, combined with the fact that it's a AAA studio, we got Sony, marketing probably pushed behind it, and it's Bungie, I don't think that that's necessarily something that's going to push them away from releasing in 2025, despite all of the competition. So I'm very, very excited for that. And like I said, that primarily I'm trying to keep my mind focused on the next thing that I think we have coming up would be a playtest. I would love to be a part of the playtest. Love to see how that comes together. Man, if that's something that could kind of, come out in this kind of first quarter of the year, maybe, or maybe, March, April timeframe, that would be phenomenal. Obviously, I'm going to be making videos about the gameplay and the lore, and who knows, they already did kind of an ARG before. So if we get kind of access to more information about the narrative we're building, that would be a huge thing for me that I would be really excited for and love to make content on. So I'm, like I said, pretty confident that the Destiny 2 Heresy leak is legitimate just because it came directly from Bungie. Pretty confident that we're going to get these playtests pretty soon, and I believe in my heart, that we're going to be playing the full game by the end of this year, but we will see. In terms of things that I kind of would like to see more of that I'm just not super sure of, would be like more dev updates and kind of like an escalated community involvement. Obviously, it's a little bit silly to talk about at this point because I understand from Bungie's perspective, why are we going to dump a bunch of time and money into building a community for a product that we don't have out yet? So I understand wanting to hold back, but I do think that there is a large audience around this game, just on the basis that there's already these games that came out 30 years ago that built the trilogy, and the game that you're making right now seemingly is really intentionally expanding upon a lot of those premises. It doesn't really feel like a reboot or a remake, uh, it feels like a continuation and putting their own modern kind of spin on the concepts from there. But a lot of the stuff from the ARG, and if obviously I have this kind of ridiculously long 4-hour video if you want to really dive into the ARG. But the gist of it is the ARG did a lot of work to build some gaps between the narrative bits that we got from the original game in ways that are super unique, very interesting, and very faithful to a lot of the kind of vibes that we were getting from the original game. Like, it's very thematically relevant the way that they did it, and very much so feels ingrained kind of in the original Marathon universe in a way that I feel like justifies its existence as this new title in that series. So I think that because of that, because we have this kind of huge depth of information, the universe is there, I really would like to see a little bit more than like, just a tweet when, Classic Marathon gets released on Steam. I think Bungie should, maybe host events around these things. I mean, they're doing these kind of, Destiny events. And I understand that's a lot of resources and production, but I feel like to build a healthy and involved community around this game and the lead up to it, I would love to see more stuff that's official. Like we just had the 30th anniversary. Obviously, I put a lot of time into kind of putting together this event, and obviously Michael, and Detrea, and Icefly, and a lot of these people helped me. A lot of community members helped me put this event together. A lot of people submitted community art, and obviously that was a great time, and that was really, I have no complaints over any of that. That was cool. And getting all the people to come out and do interviews and stuff, I thought it was a really good time. But I do think that we're celebrating 30 years of this franchise. I would really like to see if on the anniversary date on its birthday, I'd like to see Bungie say something, or the official Marathon page at the very least make a tweet or put out a statement about what they're feeling or thinking about it. I think that stuff's going to be crucial. And I think, it must be tied up in some level of like marketing strategy in terms of how they're trying to control the narrative around the new game and what kinds of information they want to put out. And I understand that. And I don't, not saying I guess I understand it. I appreciate that I am not a marketing executive. I'm not a game developer. I don't know the ins and outs of these kind of business decisions. But as an individual within the community, as someone who's excited about this game, who's, very much so invested in everything that they have going on around it, I think that it would be a benefit on the community's end if there was, more involvement from Bungie's side. I hope this is something that's going to be kind of a no-brainer and will naturally evolve, and they're just waiting because the game hasn't been in a state where they want to bring attention to it right now, and things are going to change. So that's why this is my expectation. My expectation is that they're going to have kind of that I want a public facing, community manager. I want videos and content and, written pieces being put out about Marathon from Bungie. It kind of talks about their plans and things they want to do for the game. And I want to see that become more prevalent, obviously, as we get to the game, and then especially when the game is out. And I think, despite a lot of the feedback that Destiny has gotten, which I feel like kind of there's a lot of negativity because a lot of players don't know where the game is going, but I also just kind of view that as a very unique position. Destiny is one of those games that's kind of in a class of its own. I mean, if you look at the amount of players who are involved with it and the way they interact with the game, I really struggle to find comparison. You'd have to look at things like World of Warcraft, these kind of very long hours, invested players over a very extended period of time. I think there's just unique issues that come with running a game like that. And I don't view anything that's occurring with Destiny really as a negative. It's just this is the natural course for when a game has been ongoing and concurrent for so long, and that's just a unique position to find themselves in. I don't know if the answers exist because there's not that many games that have ever been in that position or had a player base, even if it's smaller than it was 10 years in. Still kind of interested in engaging with that content. So I get that that's like in a unique position there, and I just think that everything that they've done community-wise has been really cool. I think the events that they run, I think, their community manager is on Twitter and, talking to people. I think that stuff's awesome, and I hope they look at that format and they agree. I'm assuming they do since they're the ones who put it together, but I hope they maybe aren't listening too much to some of the negativity that's probably coming from the unique situation that Destiny is in, and they kind of follow suit with a lot of the stuff that they do for Destiny and bring that over to Marathon. I would love to see things like that. So that's my kind of big expectation. And also, I think they got a lot of shit about the dev update, or I don't want to say like a lot of shit. If you go and you look at the comments on the Joe Ziegler video that they had released, I think there's a lot of people in there who are upset that it's not gameplay, or they're upset. They're just not excited about extract shooter or whatever, general kind of internet anger behavior. And so I hope that their response to that was like this. I hope that their response wasn't thinking that that was a bad idea, because I personally enjoyed the casual nature of Joe Ziegler being able to sit down in front of his monitor and be like, "Hey guys, we're making this game. This is what I'm excited about. Here's some cool stuff about it. This is where we're at." I would like to see more of that. I think that what the Forever Winter devs did with their dev update stuff, and kind of the way they're very blunt and straightforward about what they're working on and what they like, and kind of some of their thoughts behind how they're handling community was very cool. And I think it resonated with a lot of people who play games and are interested in extraction shooters and interested in games that are developing. So I would love to see more dev updates. And I think a lot of the pains that people were expressing in the comments there will probably be um, lessened once, gameplay has been revealed, once maybe there's more of a firm date. So I would love to see, and this is all kind of on the same note of being more direct and interacting, engaging with the community, more videos like that, and just kind of to hear the thoughts of the people behind the scene, maybe get other, individuals who are working on the game in there to kind of share where they're at or their side of the house, if it's the art department or the UI, or maybe people planning the narrative or seasons, and however that's going to work. I would love to see more stuff like that. So kind of those are my big like hopes and expectations in terms of what we get. And then obviously, I want to play the game, and I want to be involved in the playtest. So in terms of the channel, like coming up in 2025, obviously, guys, we're a year into making videos that obviously I'm very reliant on all of the original narrative information found from the Marathon games, because that's the basis, that's the bedrock for everything that they're building now. And also, I spent a ton of time kind of analyzing the new stuff, the trailers and the ARG, even kind of the devlog that we had initially gotten and stuff like that. So a year in, I'm kind of, a lot of that stuff I've covered. A lot of the stuff in terms of being related to the new game, I think that I've covered pretty succinctly. Maybe succinct is the wrong word, because some of the videos are pretty long, but I've covered it very thoroughly. So in terms of like how I'm gonna expand the narrative content that I'm doing out, I'm probably gonna go back and look through maybe some of the specific stuff about Traxxas, the specific stuff about the UESC and Maida and Sekaguchi as it's presented in the ARG, and maybe try to reformat those into more digestible videos so that people who aren't trying to sit through 4.5 hours have an opportunity to learn about that information as well, and maybe don't want it in kind of a dry like presentation style, but maybe want it more in the style of how Michael, had edited this last video that we did about the narrative, or the art video like that, or potentially just being more succinct with my words and maybe just kind of putting together something concise where it's just a casual video that shows the information, but maybe is a little bit shorter. And obviously, I'm not hitting on that with this video, which is me just yapping for almost 30 minutes now. So a little something different. But yeah, I think in terms of like the lore stuff that I'm going to focus on with Marathon, I do really want to kind of center it on the stuff that I feel is relevant to the upcoming game. I think that there's a lot of stuff I could do, like go back and cover Marathon 2, or do kind of like a story breakdown like I did for Marathon 1 in the beginning of last year, do that for 2 and Infinity. But, the more I think about it, the more I just see that there's so many good options out there for people who want to kind of hear a narrative breakdown of those games. I think it was relevant to do Marathon 1 because I think that foundationally that's what a lot of the information for the upcoming game is going to be based on. But, I almost would rather link people to some of these great analysis videos. Obviously, Mandalore Gaming and Hidden Xperia's narrative breakdown videos are the big ones that come to mind. But Ghost Virus is another guy who did a bunch of cool stuff. But there's a few out there. I mean, if you look up these games and analysis or lore or whatever, they'll pop up. And I kind of feel like those people have done such a good job that I don't really want to retread that water necessarily. Certain stuff where it's like I might have a different opinion on it, or it's more speculative, like maybe some of the stuff in Infinity I might put aside for, in terms of making a video talking about my thoughts on that specific aspect and why it might differ from certain things that other people have done. So, I might do something like that. But I think a lot of the lore that videos and narrative videos I make are going to be very specific to how I believe it's going to tie into the new game. And then obviously, the last 2 videos were very different. I say last 2 videos, but I guess I've been uploading the highlights from the 30th anniversary stream as well. But the 2 videos that were edited by Michael and I worked on with kind of, a number of other people for those videos. Primarily Michael, who, I'll link his Behance below, and he's a huge partner and collaborator on these things, all the art for the channel. Super grateful for him. But I think my goal, and I believe he's on the same page as our goal, is kind of, maybe more extended, maybe every other month or something. We're going to try to get kind of one of those more highly edited videos to you guys that kind of have a more broad appeal. But to fill those gaps, yeah, I'm going to talk about kind of narrative stuff in relation to the upcoming game. I want to cover all of the news from Marathon. So anything that comes out about Marathon, I'm going to be on in some way, shape, or form. So like I said, news, gameplay, leaks, anything like that, I'm going to kind of touch base on, share my thoughts on, and just make sure that the information is out there, because I do want the channel to be this kind of like definitive source for all things related to this new Marathon game. Like, I want people to be like, okay, if I want to know about the Marathon extraction shooter, I can come to this channel and I can, pick out the videos that fit my interests, and boom, it's like all the ARGs explained, all of the narrative stuff relating to the new games explained, all of the news information that's come out as it's happened is here and kind of documented for people further on. And I want this to be a good resource for people who are obviously interested in this thing. And then, besides kind of, or maybe aside from all that, I will take breaks to do things like that are maybe creatively fulfilling. Like we did a marathon kind of audio play last year. We obviously did the 30-hour stream. Like, these things are a little bit more unique and kind of like a different swing of what I normally do. But I think it's fun, to do those things, and I find that fulfilling. So we'll obviously engage in those. And I'm also kind of toying around with the idea of potentially doing like a video every week or every other week, just talking about maybe some gaming news or things that I just particularly found interesting, sharing my thoughts on. And then also, obviously, we're going to do the streams. And I'm working on putting together a stream schedule right now. It's just a little bit, I'm trying to work with my schedule that I have, obviously, aside from YouTube. And then also, I want to be available for hours where, a lot of people who come to the streams are not from the US. They're, from Australia or Europe or, a lot of different places. So I want to be able to have a few different time slots where if you want to hang out on the streams and chill or play games or whatever it is, kind of different opportunities for people. But my goal is going to be to do 2 streams a week. And then obviously I'm going to try to put them on a schedule just so people are aware and it's more, what is the word I'm looking, maybe easier, more easier. That's not right. But, maybe easier for people to jump in if they want to. So that's kind of goal. Man, I've yapped for fucking 30 minutes now. That's crazy. But yeah, my thoughts on 2024, my hopes for 2025. Guys, this is the year of marathon. I'm feeling it in my heart and I'm pretty excited. And thank you to everybody who's joined the channel and hung out. If you've listened all the way to the end of the video, I appreciate you. You're a true OG, a true all-righter. As I need I need a name for the true fans of the channel, right? I'm sure I can come up with something really cringy like everyone else has. So I'll work on that as well. But let me know your thoughts about 2024 in the comments. Let me know what you hope most for in 2025. I'm sure, just like me, it's going to be for the game to come out. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me and my silly words and my silly videos. All right. Love you guys. Sweet dreams. Good night. Bye.